everyone. This is Aaron at Power Popaholic, and I am talking to Richard Davies, who was a member of the Moles, and Cardinal. How are you doing today, Richard?
Old and tired today.
That's well, we're all old and tired, and not getting any younger either. But I'm really glad that you're going out and you're making music again. And I was introduced to you through Cardinal because I was a huge fan at the time of Eric Matthews. And when I heard he had teamed up with somebody, I had to get the Cardinal album because Eric was on it. And then I discovered you on it like that. And that first album was just, it was one of those great CDs that I hunted out and got. And I really loved, especially the song If You Believe in Christmas Trees and You've Lost Me There. Those are some of my favorite songs on that album. And then you guys, and then I tried to look up some of the Moles stuff. Some of it I could listen to, not everything. But you both took a long break at the end of the '90s, and I guess that's where you changed your career at the time to get into law. And then, what brought you back into music?
Honest to God, the reason I got back into recording again is Robert Pollard because I was full-time. I'm a trial attorney here in Massachusetts, civil trials,
I
business disputes and stuff. And I heard from someone that, that Robert Pollard really likes your music, and so it was a long time ago, about 2008 or 2009,
mm-hmm.
and Bob didn't then and still doesn't go online to communicate electronically.
Yeah.
He rips little pages out like this. It's true. So he does that, and then I reply in kind. We rip a page out of an exercise book, pick up a pen and scribble some chicken scratches to each other.
Right.
But that correspondence has been going since around 2008, 2009. And he said, if you've got some music, I'll sing on it. And so we did an album together called Cosmos in 2009, one of his 250,000 side projects.
Yes.
But honestly, Aaron, to answer your question, not facetiously, but honestly, that is how I got back into recording music again.
Wow.
And then you mentioned Cardinal, and there's a label in London called Fire Records,
Yes.
who reached out to me a year or so after the Cosmos record came out, and they did a reissue of the Cardinal, and they did some more Moles reissues and had me go play Glastonbury, which I'd never done anything like that in the
Wow.
initial incarnation of the Moles. So those two things together kind of ended up being why I got routinely back into writing songs in
Okay.
addition to trial lawyer stuff.
Okay. Great. So, but answer the question because I'm curious. After the first Cardinal came out, it was basically an experiment between you and Eric to put together some songs, and then you really didn't do anything after that with him. But later on, I think, how many years later, like 10 years later, you guys put out a second album. I didn't even hear about this. I just recently discovered it.
Wow.
How did that work? Was there bad blood when you finished the project and then you guys made up later, or what happened?
Oh, well, Eric's a peculiar personality. He has some very peculiar political views, and it's that to me, I'm kind of apolitical. I don't give a shit about politics and all the rest of it.
Right.
In my world, we're all just along for the historical ride, you know. Um,
Mhm.
and I value people taking positions and having opinions, but Eric, particularly in the new era we're in, where people are in touch electronically
Mhm.
and posting and the whole thing, the way cultures change. And I just didn't understand what the hell he was talking about with some of his crazy views, which didn't sync up with me. But it wasn't a political thing either. Eric is a very peculiar personality, and I'm a punk at heart, and he's not. So when we finished the first album, by the end of that first album,
Right.
although what we did together was really good, you were right to say it was an experiment. It wasn't a band in a conventional sense at all. It was really an art project.
Right.
And we did attempt to play a live show once in Boston at a place
Wow.
called the Middle East, which is a real punk venue in the Middle East, in downtown Boston.
Right.
And our Shirley was present, my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and Eric's girlfriend, and Bob Fay from Sebadoh, his girlfriend. And that was it. That was the whole audience.
Oh boy, you needed more promotion. I would have been there with bells on.
Well, that show, during that show, the reason it was the only show we ever played is Eric said, I don't like clubs. They're smelly, horrible places full of terrible, horrible, smelly people. And he spent most of the show kind of shying away from the microphone. It's like, I don't want to do this. This is not going to be good for me.
He's not a
And
live guy. He's not a
no,
live
and he had his
performer.
own agenda and was very precious about it. So I don't need that in my life. But then to answer your question about how it came back to doing it, a second record, Fire said they were going to reissue some of my stuff. And they wanted to reissue the Cardinal album around 2012 or so.
Yeah.
And so, I've got a restless mind, and it's pretty easy for me to conjure up songs. I've usually got some ideas buzzing around. So we just did it like from east to the west coast and did it that way. I doubt we would have or could have done it if not for the technology these days.
Excellent. Yeah, I really like the album Hymns as well. You know, the song Cal, sorry. I like,
Aaron, that
yeah,
is one of the best songs I've ever written. And
really?
Eric, no, listen to me. I really love that song. I wanted it to be the first song on that album. And all of the business people said, no, 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 it's inappropriate. And it's like bullshit. I love this song. This really summed up everything that Cardinal was to me. A decent pop song, bracketing Eric's orchestral bit in the middle.
Right, right. I enjoyed that. That and his song, he had a song called Her, which was also
Oh,
on
yeah.
that album. I love that song as well. Those two songs
Ah,
to me, like they kind of made the album for me.
oh, thank you, mate.
Sure,
Can
sure,
I ask you about you a
sure,
little bit? Because
sure,
I'm kind of curious and restless. And
sure.
I mean, where are you based? Where are you, a
I'm
Northeast
based
guy or a
I'm based in New York, in Long Island. I work in New
okay.
York City, but I'm based in Long Island. And for a couple years, about 4 years ago, I put on a uh, power pop festival in Brooklyn for,
Okay, yeah.
for 5 years. And then when COVID came, all my venues got canceled, and that was the end of the festivals. For
Right.
yeah, so that's my story, really.
Well, actually, the Moles just played the Moles being this unit of a band called Free Time, who've been together for a very long time. And I kind of parachuted in. And we're going to play a couple of shows with Guided by Voices in June, one at Irving Plaza and one in Boston. These guys and I played a show at the Knitting Factory that not you know a whole story of the knitting.
Yeah.
Knitting Factory. Oh, it's great. Oh, it's so good. Let's have a West Coast. Oh, that's great too. Oh, what happened to the New York one? No one knows. It just went like this. But they opened it up again. And the
Yeah.
guy, I fell into a conversation just before the show at the Knitting Factory, like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And it was the guy who ran the cake shop. And he was a
Wow.
lovely guy. And he's really set the Knitting Factory, the East Coast, up beautifully. There's a downstairs, which is its own quiet lounge, kind of a moody place with
Yeah.
all old furniture. But upstairs is a nice little venue, and it was full of people and had a great time. Loved it.
Great. So let me ask you another question. We're getting a little off topic. I wanted to bring it back to the music a little bit. How did Wayne Coyne from the Flaming Lips sort of discover you, and how did you meet up with him?
I wasn't sure how that happened. I think what it was is the label Fly Daddy at the time, somehow the Flaming Lips got in touch with that label, And that's how that happened. It was a little bit of a mystery to me. It was really
Oh,
through the label kind of thing. You know, let me not be, I mean, let me not be cute about it. I really think that the Flaming Lips at the time they were touring a lot, as most bands do, were trying to make it, you know,
sure.
um, with big bands, and they were poking around for ideas. And I think they probably came across a couple of my songs and thought, oh, this guy got some interesting ideas now and again. So let's get in touch with. And that's really what that was. That's really what it
Yeah,
came down to.
cool.
Yeah,
So, I mean, the great thing about what you're doing now is like you're putting forth more interest into some of your older music. I see some of your older compilations are put up there. If I'm a beginner, if I don't know the Moles that well, what should I listen to first? What give me your recommendation for for what kind of music
sure, sure.
we should listen to get
I
to
got it.
know Richard Davies and the Moles.
Well, I would say you could start with What's the New Mary Jane. There's a song called What's the New Mary Jane, which is the first song the Moles did outside of Australia. And if you're going to head outside your country of origin, you really need to go to the Meat District in New York in 1992 and have the transvestite 6'3" black prostitutes outside the door. And you need to be working with Jim Waters, who at the time he'd just been working with Lou Reed and Gumball, the
Yeah,
guy
I know
from
Gumball.
Fleming. And so we talking about being parachuted into situations. The Moles were completely out of our minds when we did that, not because of the customary stuff, but because we were so dislocated from where we started in Sydney, and we found ourselves in New York City right after the Rodney King riots. Like
Wow.
we landed in Los Angeles when the Rodney King verdict came down, and the whole country thought this is going to go to hell very quickly, and it didn't. But we thought it might, and we already were booked to go to New York. We played CBGBs. We are going to do this little record.
Right.
So it was madness, absolute madness. And I figured out not long afterwards, when I hung out in New York for a few days, it only took a few days to figure out New Yorkers are very nasty people to each other, but
Yeah.
to strangers who are helpless, they are the most warm-hearted, open-minded people. And we got help from everywhere. We didn't have an amp, and random guy said, "Oh, I'll set you up for an amp, don't worry." And so I very quickly learned there's another side to New York City. And it was so chaotic, so crazy. The riots in Los Angeles, who cares? There's all kinds of crazy shit happening every day in New York.
That's true. That
You
is
know,
absolutely true. So let me ask you a silly question here. Have Richard Davies? Have you ever met Ray Davies? You're not
no,
related to him, obviously, but
no, I didn't meet him, but I do have a weird story about being in a hotel in Los Angeles. It was on a tour with the Flaming Lips actually in the mid 90s, and a package. I wasn't present, but the
right,
hotel rooms were occupied by some of the band I was with, and a brown paper package came to my hotel room.
right.
And it wasn't. It was for Ray Davies because he was in the same hotel on a floor
Oh, wow.
downstairs. And a mysterious phone call came from his manager to my guitar player. And my guitar player is a huge power pop fan. He
Right.
knows about all of that music. And he said, Richard, it was so lame because we'd met Ray Davies in the foyer of the hotel earlier that day. And it was obvious he was impersonating his own manager, requesting his package. And I was oblivious to all that. But they were laughing when I got back to the hotel and told me that story that Ray Davies' manager had called for his package, but it was him. And he got his package. Whatever was in it was very valuable to him. So I don't know what it was,
Oh,
but
okay, cool. Maybe solid gold picks for his guitar. I don't know.
right,
I
who
don't know.
knows?
So now that you're a more actually, let me go back a little bit. Once you sort of left the punk arena with the Moles, and you were, absorbing all these like classical rock influences and stuff, and Baroque pop influences, well, when you sort of moved from Australia to the States, what was your biggest influences? Who were you listening to? Who did you really love? And who do you still listen to and get inspiration from?
That question is a good one, and the answers are probably a little bit unexpected, because that whole Baroque pop thing wasn't stuff that was an eye-opener to me. It's something that had always been inside.
Right.
So this thing with the headphones, and I'm very hard of hearing, I didn't realize until I married my wife, Shirley. And because she's American and practical, she said, get your ass to Mass General and get your hearing tested, because you've got a problem, pal. But all through, that was when I'd just done the Cardinal record. All the way through my life,
Wow.
I grabbed onto the scraps I could hear of Simon and Garfunkel and early Bee Gees and some early soul records. Actually, I know that's not Baroque, and I know it's not the Left Bank and all that. It's not appropriate. But what I'm trying to let you know is that there were a few records from the late 60s that I was left with, because my two sisters and my brother were of that generation, but they left. They were about 15 years older than me.
Right.
So I would put these few records on, the Bee Gees, early Bee Gees, which my father would listen to with me and approve of, because he was an old Welshman and he was very old school, World War II, Royal Navy veteran, all this, but he approved of it, and the same with Simon and Garfunkel. So those they're not like deep and broad, cool references. They're very mainstream, but they really did touch me and moved me. And I was very interested and fascinated by what it took to write a song with melody. Because, look, I get it. If you put a guitar up loud, anything will sound good, and you can go ahead. And I love that too. But I found it fascinating, and one of the hardest things to do was to try to distill in 3-4 minutes lyrics and a melody and chords and some harmonies that would be appealing and move someone's heart and just bypass the brain. So that really had always been there. And that's kind of, I think, because I went to the other side of the world and became like an exile.
Right.
That really kicked in, and it was me remembering what it was like to be 7 years old listening to Simon and Garfunkel or something at the time that I was recording that stuff as a 30-year-old with Eric Matthews. That's really what it was. That's the answer, and that's still kind of the answer. I often find even recording more scuzzy punk kind of tunes or whatever, lo-fi stuff, I find myself excavating that emotional memory of when I was a kid and how I first related to songs that moved me.
Cool. So what are you listening to, at this stage in your life? Is there anything that's influencing you now?
Yes, I know it's really lazy and slack. It's just like you. I'm a human being, right? So I
Right.
just turned 60, right? So what I do these days is I put the television on and I go to YouTube, and YouTube presents me all wrapped up in a nice little bow, all the shit that I've already watched. And if something turns up that I haven't seen yet, I'll watch that.
Very good. Oh, wow.
But before we end,
Sure.
can I ask you, I mean,
Sure.
two things. What motivates and drives you on the music front? Just, and what do you do when you're not doing this?
Oh, yeah, that's easy. What motivates me is basically I get sort of like a little bit of a contact high when I discover an indie band that nobody knows about, and they play something really good that's catchy, that just that just, I said, wow, I've got to spread the word. I've got to let people know this is great stuff, music that deserves to be heard. And I promote it as best I can because, I want good musicians to succeed because that's really what motivates me. If there's a good musician and he's languishing in the dark somewhere and he's playing wonderful things, it's sort of like if a tree falls in the forest, no one hears it. If a great record is done in somebody's bedroom and it stays in the bedroom, no one's going to hear it either. And I feel sad about that. So
one of the myths, we're running out of time, I get it.
Yeah, I know.
But one of the myths that we all believe when we were in our early 20s and mid 20s is that as a human being, you had to pick something and do it. And that becomes your identity. Bullshit.
No. Yeah,
Bullshit.
it's true.
No, you are who you are. And life is organic. And whether you like it or not, you are who you are. Took me a very long time to understand that. And I'm quite happy in my own skin, even though it's old skin.
Well, the older you get, the more accepting you are of yourself, and the less other people matters to you what other people think, which is an important part of getting old. That's one of the great things. So
there's lots of bad things about it.
We don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. But thank you so much, Richard Davies and the Moles, Cardinal. It was great talking to you. We got to have another chat soon. Hopefully you'll be coming out with some new music at some point and we'll be able to talk about it again.
Very good. Thank you, mate. Thanks,
all right.
Aaron.
Thanks so much.
It.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.